This video is for tempering chocolate using a seeded method. So for this method, what you need to do is you need to turn your tank on, so plug it in and make sure the button is switched on at the back. Allow the tank to heat up. So at the front, set the dial to 45 degrees. Make sure the red light comes on to show that the machine is working and that it's coming up to temperature. So inside your tank, I have got 1,500 grams of milk chocolate at 45 degrees. Here I have 15% of callets, okay, so this is around 225 grams. For this method, I need to add the callets to the chocolate to allow it to cool down. Okay, so it might take all of these or it might take less. It depends on the temperature of the callets. If they're colder, it might not take as many. It also depends on the room temperature. So you might have watched my other video on tempering with tabletop method. So your room temperature will be set by the lecturer at around sort of 20 to 21 degrees. So for this method, my chocolate's at 45, okay, so it's come straight from the tank. I've measured it. You want it between 40 and 45 to start off with, no colder than that. So 45 degrees. Okay, a spoon for stirring and also a palette knife to test the chocolate with as well to make sure that it's set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly add handfuls of chocolate and stir. With your temperature dial, you need to turn it down to the working temperature. So the working temperature for chocolate, for milk chocolate, is 29.5 to 30. So you start it off at 45 while the chocolate is sitting in there, and as soon as you start adding callets, you're going to turn it down to the working temperature of 29.5 to 30. So you're going to be stirring, going backwards and forwards, going round and round, around the outside, making sure that the chocolate isn't setting around the outside. So once the first handful of callets has almost disappeared, you can add in the next handful. So what's happening inside of here is the cold chocolate that is solid is cooling down the liquid chocolate, okay? So it's creating a chain reaction with cocoa butter crystals inside to create the working temperature. So the working temperature for milk chocolate is 29.5 to 30. So you're going to keep adding and adding. Don't add too much in one go. If you add too much in one go, you'll find it difficult to stir it, and as well it might bring the chocolate down too low in temperature, and they won't be able to all melt sufficiently if you add too much in one go. So just go up and down, round and round, go round the outside. Try to keep clear of lumps forming upon your spoon, so just, scrape it down if you need to. Also make sure that your tank is cling film, so as I said on my other video, you need to cling film the tank to keep it nice and clean, so it's easier for you to clean after the session. So as you can see, I'm just going to bring it up to the camera. As you can see, the chocolate is starting to thicken up slightly. I've got all the lumps out, so I'm going to then add the next handful of the solid chocolate and give it a stir. So at this point, I'm going to see what progress I've made so far with the chocolate. So remember, it started off at 45. So I'm just popping in my temperature probe just to see how much progress I've made. Okay, so it's around 36 degrees. So it's dropped by about 10 degrees already. As you can see, I've still got more to go in. So we always work on a rule of sort of 15 to 20% of chocolate to add. As I said, it depends on the room temperature as well and the temperature of the callets itself. So we're just going around and around, up and down, until the callets are melted. You might see some little lumps still, some tiny ones. It's okay to add a little bit more in if you've still got some tiny lumps. So I've got to come down about another sort of 6 degrees, 7 degrees to get to my working temperature. Keep the chocolate moving around and around, up and down, around the sides. So I can feel the chocolate is a lot thicker than it was at the start. So that's indicating that the temperature is dropping and that the chocolate is almost ready. So I've got a few lumps in there. I'm just going to be careful before I add any more chocolate. I'm going to test the temperature, because if you're almost at your working temperature, you don't want to be adding too much more chocolate, otherwise it will become over-crystallised and too thick. Okay, so I'm reading around 33, so I'm almost there. I'm just going to add a little bit more, stir those in. What you can do is just lift the insert up just so some air can circulate round to help with the cooling process. So this method is a little bit cleaner than the tabletop method. So there are a few little lumps left in there. I'm not going to add any more until I've tested the temperature. I want those lumps to melt down. So when you come into the end of the chocolate, the end of your bowl of chocolate, you want to be very careful of how fast you add it in, okay? Because you don't want to add chocolate and then have lumps. You want to make sure it's all able to melt. So bearing in mind, I'm looking for 29.5 to 30. I'm looking for it to be thicker, and I'm looking for it to set between 1 and 3 minutes on a palette knife. So the viscosity is very important. Okay, so I'm at the working temperature of 29.5 to 30. So what I'm going to do is dip in my palette knife and then just leave that on the table to set within the 3-minute window. So as you can see on my palette knife, what I have here is my chocolate test. So when my chocolate was at the correct temperature of 29.5 degrees, what I did is I dipped in the palette knife and I left it on the side, and I timed how long it took for this to set. So this took between 1 minute and 3 minutes, and it should be hard. Okay, so as you can see, it's not liquidy anymore and it's set.